Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Black Talent TV's Look Who's Next. Of course, you guys know I'm your hostess with the mostest, Miss Simone Jackson. Always here to bring you guys another great episode of Look Who's Next. For those of you guys who don't know, who are just tuning in, Look Who's Next is a great podcast where we have engaging conversation with influential guests in the entertainment industry. I'm really happy and excited to be interviewing our next guest. She's an actress. She's a filmmaker. She's a writer. She's just one of the most exciting actresses and writers and filmmakers to actually burst on the scene, and I say in a while. So I'm super excited to be talking to her. She definitely deserves to be on here because she's just the one to know. So everyone, please give a big, big warm welcome, Miss Numa Perrier.
Yes.
Yes.
You got it.
Yay! How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Like I said, we're really excited to be having you on the show. Like I said, you are an incredibly busy woman where I know, things, you got projects coming at you left and right. So I'm super excited you're able to give a few minutes and chat with us today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I'm going to shoot the first question at you, Ms. Numa. Of course, we here at Black Talent TV would love to know, where did this intensity, passion for filmmaking and acting begin for you?
It began at a really young age for me. I think since I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, I always had an interest in acting. I always had an interest in television and movies. And even though on the movie side, I wasn't really exposed to many films growing up, and I'm still kind of playing catch up, going backwards, watching classic films from way back. And because growing up, I wasn't really exposed to it, but definitely television was kind of the first thing that sparked my interest in school plays and just launching into imaginary characters because I lived on a farm. And that's kind of how I spent my time, was imagining things and playing with the farm animals and imagining that they had voices and just doing weird stuff like that as a kid. It was really, how my passion for characters and imagination all started. And then as I came to know more about films and know more about, the different landscapes that are out there, and that it's actually a way to make a living and have a career, then I continue to follow that path.
Nice. I love that. That's awesome. I love that the fact that you used to use your imagination on the farm animals. Because yes, I am a city girl, so I'm letting you know. Me being on the farm, yes, I would use my imagination to yes, because I'm going to be out in country. Yes, I love that. That is exactly how I would do it, especially if you're not.
That's how I did it. Yes, every Halloween I was a movie star. And so, no specific movie star, just a movie star. And so, sometimes you can't exactly understand why you have those ideas at such a young age, or why you want that, especially if you're not exposed to that. No one in my family was doing that. I didn't, have friends that were acting. I didn't live in Los Angeles or any type of city where you see kids, going to auditions and stuff. Mm-hmm. It was just something that I wanted since I was really young. And then I kind of figured out the system of it, and now here I am.
That is awesome. I love that, though. I love that. It something as an imagination created a passion and career for you now as an adult. So I love that. I think it's perfect. To go on that just a little bit more, as an actress, what roles do you gravitate to?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think when in the beginning, I think I gravitated mostly to very dramatic roles. The plays that I was interested in were the like classic Black theater type of plays. With those really strong, intense roles, and it wasn't until I started working in the digital space doing web series that I really did my first bit of something lighter, comedy, doing the series The Couple, which was just a very understated series about a couple who were dating that decided to move in together and how much they get on each other's nerves. And it was a very light comedy, and the first time that I saw myself as being funny or wanting to do those types of roles. And so now I really enjoy both. And I just think that it was just kind of, you know, having those fantasies as an actor before you really know fully who you are and kind of how other people see you as well is why I gravitated so much, you know, to strictly the dramas, because my life was dramatic and I felt like that's what I wanted to pour everything into. And I still do. I love dramatic films and I love those type of roles. But I really love humor, and I love twisted humor, and I love dark comedies, and I love, you know, doing things that are absurd and satirical. And I grew into that. So, yeah, satires and also still the gritty dramas are both things I like.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see how you would want to gravitate to those roles and how those roles do speak to you. So, but yeah. Um, yeah, that's actually really pretty awesome. So, you know, Numa, also just continue on just a little bit more as a filmmaker, you know, because you're also a filmmaker as well. What stories do you hope? What stories do you like to create? You know, what stories interest you, and you know, what stories do you hope to create as a filmmaker?
I'm most interested in stories that center women in ways that, in quiet ways that are actually really meaningful and interesting that you wouldn't have thought of before. Like I just watched the film Roma, which is about a woman who is basically kind of the main caregiver and you know, caretaker of a home in Mexico, and it's really just about her, how she's kind of alone in that life. So she's supporting this entire family, but she's on the fringe of that family, yet she has this entire full world of her own and her own hopes and dreams and things that you would normally not see someone who's playing a housekeeper or, you know, in a type of service position. You would never get a chance to know or care about who they are. I'm always interested in finding those stories and uncovering them and exposing them in an honest way. That's what I'm really drawn towards as a filmmaker. And when I'm watching movies and I see kind of those side characters, I'm always thinking, can we make a movie about that person? Can we spin this off into something? How could we find this person that we're barely hearing from? You know, they have an entire world that exists around the world that they're kind of placing those characters in. And I really love when I see films like that, and I seek to make those type of films as well.
Yeah, and I like that because you're right. You know, just for example, you know, when you see a movie about the superstar best friend and the superstar and his sidekick best friend, I would like to know more about the sidekick than I would about, you know, the main superstar. You know, we like you know.
Yes.
Yeah, you know,
that's a great movie idea. That's a great movie idea right there. You could call it Sidekick.
Yeah,
and it's all about someone who's kind of trailing this, you know, really popular person, but it's what their life is like, you know. And I think, that would be a great film.
Yeah,
that's the kind of project I would get behind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you always see movies about the popular person, the popular guy, the popular girl, and them going through whatever conflict they go to. But their best friend is always their sidekick, is always there to just, you know, help their story along. But like you just said, they have a whole world, a whole life of their own based, you know, in the story. So how about we get to know more of them? I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, I feel like you just gave me the idea for my next project. I mean, really, it's, you know, people who are, you know, people who are on the sidelines, people who are on the fringe, actually have full lives, very fascinating worlds. I want to sink into those worlds. I want to be brought into those worlds, and that's what excites me. And And that's what I look for. And I always ask questions about, even when people pitch stories to me, I say, well, what about if we focused on, have you ever thought about it from this person's perspective instead? You know, because otherwise you kind of are hearing a lot of the same pitches over and over again.
Yes,
But
exactly.
if, you know, creators would just push a little further and maybe think about coming at things from a different perspective, we would have so much more of the, you know, diversity that we're seeking. If people would just kind of just lean to the left and lean to the right of these stories and find a different place to place the center of something.
I
And
so agree.
yeah, that's what I really like as a filmmaker.
Yes, and that's the type of movies I like to watch as a moviegoer. So yeah, I completely agree. You know, like you pretty much said it best. You know, if we continue to tell those stories from just one person's type of view, which is always usually the popular person, because you know, it seems like our society has conditioned us to care only about attractive people's stories, but they're not the only ones on this earth. And I mean, and like you said, sometimes their stories are the same, so you're just repackaging the same story over and over again, and where there's so many different stories and voices out there. So I definitely appreciate that for a filmmaker, for you, that you're willing to want to explore the more complex stories of human nature. So I do appreciate that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it excites me. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But Miss Numa, you have been recently cast in Caroline's Wedding, which I do believe is based off of a play. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
yes, it comes from a short story that Edwidge Danticat wrote in it's a book called Crick Crack, which is a collection of Haitian folk stories that she wrote, and some of them are kind of blended with things that she experienced, but also stories that she heard growing up, and kind of expounding on those stories. And there's one that's called Caroline's Wedding, and it's about two sisters, one who's getting married to a man who is, well, it's two Haitian sisters who are living in New York with their mother.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a family story. And the younger sister is getting married to an American man. And it's really interesting how that's really come forward a lot in conversations between it's kind of part of the immigrant conversation about different, Haitian cultures and other Caribbean cultures and different African cultures that are also part of the American culture dynamic, and kind of how we all relate to each other. And so in this story, the younger sister is marrying a Black American, and her mother is having some trouble with that, or they're kind
Mm-hmm.
of wrangling with that. And the older sister has just become a citizen, and she's kind of grappling with what that means for her identity. And it's a very simple story about how they live in a Brooklyn home and how these three women support each other and just kind of get through the milestones of life in a kind of isolating environment, which is America. And so my character is also really processing the grieving her father, who had died years before, but keeps coming to her in dreams. And so she kind of has there's kind of a slight supernatural feeling to it, where the father kind of appears to her and it's helping guide her through all of these things, and helping to guide her through what to say to her sister and how to be with her mother and things like that. And so it's really poetic and very moving in that way. And I'm really excited about being part of it. The writer-director is a Haitian woman. Her name is Esmani Michelle, and she lives in Brooklyn. And she's been working to get this film made for a number of years now, and we're looking to film early next year.
Oh, wow. It really sounds like that's going to be a really compelling, but like you said, poetic film. So I'm very interested to see that. I do love family family movies like that play on that type of drama, because it is, I feel, important to, explore and talk about. So I'm very excited to see how that's definitely going to come, through within the next year.
Yeah, me too. Me
Mm-hmm.
too.
Mm-hmm. Miss Numa, but besides that, what other future projects are you involved with that you can just give a little dish to Blacktown TV about?
Well, and I'm very excited also about in front of the camera as an actress. I was cast in a Showtime series called Smilf, which is going into its second season. And Smilf is about a single mother living in Boston, really just trying to get her life together and figure out day to day how she's going to feed her kid. It's a comedy. It's a dark comedy about this woman who kind of really doesn't have it together as a mom, but she's doing her best every day. And she lives in Brooklyn, and she lives in Boston, and she's taking all of these different odd jobs, and she's having to deal with the father of her child moving on with another woman and all of these things. And in the second season, they've really expanded on that world a bit to include different types of mothers. So it is still centered on the main character who also created the show, Frankie Shaw, but in the second season, they're looking at every episode is dealing kind of with different aspects of what intersects with motherhood. So in my storyline, they're looking at, which is interesting because I was just talking about Roma, they're looking at, in Boston, there's a very large Haitian community. And within that community, there's definitely, a certain percentage that are working in the homes of very affluent white families, and they're taking care of their kids, and they're keeping the house together, and they're cooking, and they're keeping it together for and offering kind of a surrogate motherhood to these children. And my character is one of those women, but we actually get to see her life. So you're not just seeing me in the home taking care of this home. You're actually seeing that this woman has a life, and she's funny, and she's seductive, and she's got a little mischief in her, and it's really just it's a really great, complex role that deals with the other side, kind of exactly what I was just talking to you about, which is why I was so excited to be part of it. Is it's doing exactly what I was just talking about, which is focusing on who would normally just kind of be on the side with maybe one or two lines thrown in there, but actually showing us their life. So you get to see my family, you get to see what I'm up to on the other side of my life. And yeah, so that's coming out. The season premieres January 20th, and I'll be in several episodes of that second season. So that is upcoming. Also, my film Jezebel that I wrote and directed, it's my feature film debut. That's coming out early next year as well. I'm working on an independent distribution of that. And that is a sister story based on my real life. And it's about when I lived in Las Vegas with my older sister. And at the time she was working as a phone sex operator, and she introduced me to the world of what she called internet modeling, but it was really basically doing peep shows online when the internet first started.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so the story is about how these two sisters, again, based on my real life, how they encourage each other to explore and exploit their sexuality. And it's how they survive, but it's also how they forge a really unusual type of sisterhood together. And I wrote and directed that, and I play my older sister. And so that film is coming out. It's going to come out actually around the time that my Smoke episodes come out. So it's going to be a busy time for
Yes.
me.
Absolutely. All that sounds incredible. I'm looking forward to see the movie based on your life. You definitely had me hooked with the plot, so I definitely would love to see. Yeah, you got me hooked on that plot, girl. I got to see what else is happening. I was like, oh, oh, I gotta find out more. I need to know more. So I am definitely hooked on that. I encourage the entire Black Talent TV audience listening in. Make sure you check out Miss Numa, and not only in Caroline's Wedding coming out later next year, correct?
Yes, but we'll start filming next year. So I'm not sure when the release will be, but we'll start filming next year.
Yes.
So just stay tuned.
Make sure you definitely check her out when she is on that, and make sure you check her out on Smoke on HBO. Sounds like a very powerful, really great show to watch, especially if you're a single mom. It's definitely something relatable and definitely something that, people can definitely feel a part of. So I definitely encourage you guys to check that out as well as when Numa makes a movie about her life, because again, I'm already hooked, so I know you guys are already hooked as well. So make sure you guys follow her. Which, speaking of which, Miss Numa, can you tell where the Black Talent TV audience can go to follow you and your work? Because I want to make sure to keep up to date with you and your movie news.
Yes, please. You can find me both on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Numa, which is MISSNUMA, Miss Numa. And I love interacting with everyone. So feel free to reach out, feel free to hang out, ask questions, or just lurk.
Lurk. I love it. Or just lurk, either way.
Either way, you can come and lurk, or you can come, and connect. Like, I love talking to everyone. So.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes. Black Talent TV audience, make sure you go and you follow Miss Numa on her Twitter, on her Instagram. And like she said, you guys can lurk, or you guys can say hi, hit her up, and, let her know that you guys are huge fans, because she's going to be everywhere, and she's definitely going to be the actress and filmmaker to not only know, but to watch out for. So make sure you guys check her out, and make sure you guys say, hey, Numa, we heard you on Black Talent TV. So make sure you guys definitely do that. Coming into the last few questions, Miss Numa, I'm very interested to know, as you're making huge strides in Hollywood and really immersing yourself into that world, I would like to know if you had any chance to work with any Hollywood director, doesn't matter if it's male or female, who would you like to work with one day?
I want to work with Barry Jenkins, and I've met and I know him to some degree already, but we have yet to work professionally together and creatively together. And I feel like there's something there, so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, Barry Jenkins, that's a great answer. If anyone is listening that works with Barry Jenkins, we know an actress that would be perfect in his films. Just saying, if you're listening in, just, Barry, hit her up. She definitely would love to work with you. Coming in, last few questions here. Numa, what goals do you hope to reach with not only with your acting career, but your filmmaking career as well? What goals do you hope to reach?
My goals, some of them are what I think a lot of our goals are, which is, nab some of those great awards. You want to get that Emmy, you want to be in the Oscar run, you want to elevate, to the level of being recognized by your peers in that way. And some of my goals definitely center around those things. But also my goal is to keep working, to have a very long, rich, powerful, impactful career, cross-platform, really, and in the independent space, in the digital space, in the movie space, in television space, and in all the new spaces, the virtual reality space, all the new spaces. I want to find where I fit into all of those grooves and make an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really hope that, just judging by, your work and your passion and your career direction, I see you having a very, very, very long career in both acting and filmmaking, Ms. Numa. I see you being in this business for quite some time. So I'm definitely calling on that. All right.
Yeah, I received that.
Yes, let's Let's wish that into existence. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yep.
Last question coming at you, Miss Numa. Just for any of the young, inspiring filmmakers out there that's listening in, that that are pretty much impacted by your words today, and they just feel that fire of just wanting to be where you're at. What advice could you give to young, inspiring filmmakers of today?
One thing that no one told me that I would tell other people is that your story is enough. Your story, find a way to dig in and expose your own personal stories. And I think sometimes there's kind of two camps about that. But I'm definitely on the camp that says mine your life and find how you can express something about that, because it's probably way more meaningful than you even know. People that even think that, nothing's ever happened to them, it's not true. Your life is interesting, and
yes,
and it means something to someone, and use that as a starting point. And even if you're doing something genre, sci-fi, or this or that, it doesn't mean that you can't find something personal, because that's all yours when you do that, and you can still place that into a genre like sci-fi. I'm not necessarily saying do your autobiography, saying take those personal feelings and those personal the texture of those things that you've felt and that you've been through, and find a way to put that in your work, because it's something that no one else will ever have. And it'll remind you of who you are. And it's something that no one ever really told me, but I figured that out, and I think it's created a unique space for me to play in and work in and relate to others from. So yeah, I would definitely, and I do encourage people. I'm always asking people when they're talking to me about projects, why do you want to do this project? Tell me more about you. And then once they start talking about themselves, where they're from, things they've been through, I'm always really fascinated by that, and trying to kind of steer them to utilize that inside of their ideas, or even pivot to focus on that instead.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I really hope the Black Talent TV audience really takes to heart to what you said, because it's very powerful advice. So really, guys, I hope you're listening in and you guys are really tuning in to what she says, because, as a promising filmmaker and actress, she definitely knows her stuff. So hopefully you guys take to heart to what she says. So, Miss Numa, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I'm really glad we had a chance to get you on the show. It's been great. Like I said, I cannot wait for more of the future projects that you're involved with to be coming out. Like I said, I am completely hooked on that story about on the movie about your life. I'll definitely be there in line with everybody else to go see it, because I'm like, she told me about this a long time ago, and now I need to see this. So I'll
well, it's definitely on the way. So
I'll definitely be there to see it. So don't you worry about that. I am definitely going to go see it. And I highly, highly encourage, of course, Black Talent TV audience to not only follow Miss Numa, to keep up with her and her work, reach out to her and check out the movies and upcoming projects that she's going to have up. You guys are going to be very, very interested to see what she's got going on. She's got amazing, compelling stories. So I definitely encourage you guys to make sure you check her out so you guys can see and hear those stories. But of course, you guys know I am your hostess with the most, Miss Samantha Jackson, always willing to bring you guys another great episode of Look Who's Next. Of course, if you guys are interested in interviewing with me or advertising with us, make sure you hit us up at info@blacktalentv.com. We're always happy to hear from you guys. Just make sure you guys hit us up. So I definitely want to thank our guest for today, Miss Numa. I really appreciate you coming and speaking with us, giving us your thoughts. I know the Black Talent TV audience is definitely going to love it, and you probably will see yourself with more followers than usual probably after this podcast, because you are definitely the one to watch and follow. So I definitely see that happening for you. But I definitely want to thank you again, Ms. Numa, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Of course, you guys know, again, one more time, I am Simone Jackson. Until another great episode of Look Who's Next, I just want to wish everyone a beautiful day, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.